Bobbi Kristina, the daughter of legendary R&B singers Bobby Brown and Whitney Houston, died after being in a coma for 6 months. Now, story goes, in January 2015, she was found face down and unresponsive in a bathtub underwater. Now, her friend and ex-boyfriend named Max Lomas said earlier that day Bobbi Kristina and Nick Gordon got into an argument, and then they made up and went upstairs. Now see, Nick Gordon came into the picture after Bobby and Whitney divorced, and Whitney took him in when he was homeless and called him her adopted son, but she never legally adopted him. But anyway, now back to the story. After Bobbi Kristina and Nick Gordon made up after the argument, right, they went upstairs, according to Max Lomas. Max Lomas said he later went upstairs, and that's when he later found Bobbi Kristina face down and floating in a tub of cold water in the bathroom. After pulling her out of the tub and noticed that she wasn't breathing, he yelled for Nick, then called 911. Now, when Nick Gordon saw her, he started panicking and let the water out of the tub and told Max and his girlfriend, Daniela Bradley, who was also present at the time and one of Bobbi Kristina's close friends. Now, Nick Gordon told him to clean up all the stuff around. They had drugs and beer, everything. And Nick Gordon started doing CPR on her and slapping her, yelling to wake up. And eventually he got her to regurgitate water twice until the paramedics arrived. Now, earlier I mentioned the name Daniela Bradley, who was also there that night. Now, according to Daniela, she said Bobbi Kristina and Nick Gordon were fighting bad, and Nick Gordon began kicking Bobbi Kristina in the side to the point that she was on the floor screaming and curled up in a fetal position. The fight allegedly knocked one of Bobbi Kristina's teeth out. Now, she then said Nick Gordon then demanded that Bobbi Kristina go upstairs, but she had to crawl, unable to walk after the physical assault. Nick then left and did cocaine and was drinking all night. Came back home, checked on Bobbi Kristina, and changed his clothes. Came out of the room and got in the bed with a female house guest who was staying there, saying, "Now, I want a pretty little white girl like you." He was saying that to the female guest that was staying there. Wow, that's crazy. And I remember Bobby Brown saying this in his book, that when he went to go see Bobbi Kristina, she had bruises all over her and her teeth was missing, in which Pat Houston told him that she lost a tooth when doctors was trying to put the tubes down her throat. Another crazy fact is, the day before Whitney was found dead, which was ruled accidental drowning in her Beverly Hills hotel room bathroom the night before the Grammy Awards, which I don't believe, Bobbi Kristina almost drowned in the tub after falling into a drunken sleep while bathing. And that was at the same hotel, the Beverly Hills Hilton, and the water overflowed out into the hallway, and luckily Whitney found her and pulled her out. Now check this, here's another crazy part to this story, right? In August 2018, Max Lomas, who I mentioned earlier, who found Bobbi Kristina, he was found dead due to a drug overdose. Now reports say after going into his friend's bathroom, his friend became concerned when Max didn't come out for a while. When he went in to check on him, he found him on the floor in the bathroom with a syringe by his body. He was then rushed to the hospital where he died. Supposedly, he was supposed to be clean from drugs and he wasn't friends with Nick Gordon at the time anymore, but it's just eerie because he died in the bathroom too. He was 28 years old. R.I.P. Max Lomas. Now getting back to Bobbi Kristina, right? Now, after all that, Bobbi Kristina was transported to the hospital and later placed in a medically induced coma and on a ventilator. I remember Bobbi Brown saying at one of his shows that Bobbi Kristina was awake and doing good. And I think everybody thought she was going to pull through. Was going to make it out that coma. But then Bobbi got a call from a nurse saying that Bobbi Kristina just took her last breath and died. So he flies out to Atlanta to make funeral arrangements. And when he gets there, Bobbi Kristina is still alive. Now check this out, right? Then he finds out about a fake nurse who didn't have a license taking care of Bobbi Kristina at the hospice. Some lady from Nigeria came all the way from North Carolina just to sneak her way in and care for Bobbi Kristina as a contractor at Peachtree Christian Hospice. Now, the company that hired this lady, called Homestead Hospice, said that her background check, prior employment history at healthcare facilities, and references made them believe that she was a good nurse with proper credentials. But the truth is, this lady has stolen the state-issue RN number of a real nurse at Grady Memorial Hospital in Atlanta. But Homestead Hospice didn't reveal how or when she ended up at the hospice where Bobbi Kristina was at. Now, Bobbi Brown's sister, Leola, who was very close to Whitney and Bobbi Kristina, said that that nurse was sent by Pat Houston. That's what she thinks. Leola got a lot of interviews online where she was calling out Pat Houston, Ray J, Bobbi Brown's wife Alicia, and a whole bunch of other people. And y'all know they kicked her out of Bobbi Kristina's funeral after she went off on Pat when she was making a speech. Leola Brown, because Leola Brown yelled out that Whitney was going to haunt her for doing all this. Plus, she didn't like the fact that Pat Houston threw a Sweet 16 themed funeral because Bobbi Kristina was in rehab when she was 16 and never had a Sweet 16. That's crazy. Dionne Warwick, who is the cousin of the Houstons, also expressed that she didn't like it either, and she felt that Pat was trying to be the head of the family. Now, Leola's supposed to have a book coming out. Yeah, Leola Brown, Bobbi Brown's sister, supposed to have a book coming out and revealing things, saying that Whitney and Bobbi Kristina was actually murdered. And I do know that Bobbi Brown and Pat Houston were appointed as co-guardians of Bobbi Kristina while she was in a coma. And Bobby said in his book that he had to fight with the Houstons on every decision he made about Bobbi Kristina. Now, after finding out she wasn't dead after Bobbi got that call, her health, it just kept declining and she started having seizures. That's when Pat Houston decided to pull the plug and take her off life support, and she ended up passing away weeks later. Bobby and his family didn't want to take her off life support, but the Houstons was putting pressure on him and was telling him that there was no hope for her. And an autopsy showed that she did have morphine, cocaine, and alcohol and prescription drugs in her body, but the medical examiner couldn't determine if she killed herself, if someone else killed her, or her death was accidental. The underlying cause of death was immersion associated with drug intoxication. But the official cause of her death is listed as pneumonia. After her death, everybody blamed her ex-boyfriend Nick Gordon because he gave her a toxic cocktail before putting her face down in the water. And in 2016, a judge in Atlanta ruled that he was liable for her death and ordered him to pay more than $36 million in damages, but no criminal charges were filed against him. But on January 1st, 2020, Nick Gordon ended up dying from a drug overdose in Florida on New Year's Day at the age of 30 years old. Man, this Bobbi Kristina story is just a sad story. And I went back and started watching that reality show they had called The Houstons, and Bobbi Kristina was grieving so hard, man, after Whitney died. I know Bobby Brown said he was against that. He didn't want her on the reality show after her mother died. Now, the thing is, Whitney Houston did draw up a will in 1993 when Bobbi Kristina was born, in which she would receive the money in a series of payments over 9 years. 10% at age 21, which was about $2 million, a 30% distribution at 25, and the remainder at age 30. The will stipulates that if Bobbi Kristina were to die unmarried, without children of her own, and had left no will and testament of her own, the money would be divided among Whitney's living relatives, which is Cissy Houston and her brothers Michael and Gary. Bobby Brown would have got some money if him and Whitney didn't divorce, but Pat Houston took over as the executor of the estate at Cissy Houston's request. And there's just so much to this story, man, I didn't touch up on. And I also remember when Pat Houston was caught on tape talking negative about Whitney and Bobbi Kristina. I think her daughter recorded it or something. And I'm gonna leave it alone and save the rest for when I do Whitney Houston's story, because when Whitney died, man, Bobbi Kristina, they say Bobbi Kristina was in the hallway crying and having a breakdown, and they say Ray J and a lot of celebrities was just celebrating, popping champagne, didn't even care about what she was. It was crazy, man. And according to Bobby Brown's brother Tommy, the only one that seemed to care about Bobbi Kristina when Whitney had passed that day was the singer Monica. So, man, that's crazy, man. And shout outs to Bobby Brown, man, because that's a lot to deal with. Losing Whitney and Bobbi Kristina the same way. Make sure y'all pick up that book. Bobbi Kristina was 22 years old. R.I.P.